I guess what makes Traveler's music unique is the fusion of the ethnic styles put in with the rock sound, kind of in the way that blues music became rock and roll. How they electrified this deeply rooted style of music. That was kind of my vision as well, but with other ethnic styles, other deeply rooted ethnic styles. So, especially when I went to Morocco, I realized, playing with the Berber musicians and listening to them play their banjos in this very pentatonic scales, which are older than rock and roll for sure. But you could hear the riffs, you could hear the sound of rock in that music. And so it made sense to take other deeply rooted ethnic styles like Arabic music, Turkish music, Balkan music, and do the same thing with it, electrify it. And it was a very natural uh, joining of styles to my ear. So I guess that started for me, and for what became the Traveler Project was something as far back as I can remember. When I was probably 4 years old, my parents had this album. It wasn't actually a record album, it was a reel to reel on a tape recorder. So it had to be strung through the tape head, and it was a big hassle. So you couldn't just listen to one song, but they had the album Bridge Over Troubled Water by Simon and Garfunkel. And I was in love with this song number two on the album. It had this ethnic sound to it. Um, and I was just obsessed with this song. It just sounded so different than all the other songs. And now realizing it was a very ethnic song. It was El Condor Pasa, which is a old Peruvian melody. And even on the album, they used a Peruvian band to to play the music for this song. So that, oddly enough, the funny thing is when I was a kid, I hated this boring, incredibly awful song that was before my favorite song, but I had to listen to it because you could just skip. So I suffered through it, and to hear my favorite song. It turns out that song, it was Bridge Over Troubled Water, which, shortly after I'm realizing that that was probably one of the greatest songs ever written. And I eventually found my appreciation for that song. But when I was four, I didn't appreciate it. It was just too slow, too boring. But El Condor Pasa did it for me. So Paul Simon was a big influence. And then later, as you saw what he did with Graceland, he was one of the world's great innovators of ethnic music into, I guess, what you might call a folk or pop style of that time.